What we'll do is I'll share my screen as we go through the proposed resolutions, and Douglas will be describing them to you, and we'll have some time for discussion and questions after each one. Let me. All right.
There we go. Well, almost. There we go. Great. All right, Gwen, is it okay to start?
Go ahead.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everybody again for joining us tonight, and also for those groups and individuals who proposed resolutions for the 2024 convention's consideration. A total of 6 resolutions were timely received and have met all the canonical requirements for being proposed. We'll review them in the order they were received by the diocese. I'll introduce each one and ask an individual who submitted that resolution or who represents a group that submitted the resolution to speak to it for 3 minutes, and then we'll open the floor for discussion and questions. And just to keep things moving, we'll try to limit everybody's say to 3 minutes apiece. So with the first resolution 2401, increasing the size of the disciplinary board for the diocese, this was proposed by our one and only Gwen Lynch, and I will ask her to make a comment on it.
The disciplinary board is made up of elected individuals, clergy and lay, and they are responsible for hearing Title IV complaints. Title IV is the disciplinary canon for clergy in the Episcopal Church. When someone makes a complaint, that person contacts our intake officer. The intake officer makes an initial assessment of if all of the things said here were true, would it be an offense? And if so, then it is moved forward to the disciplinary board. If not, it is dismissed. The Episcopal Church canons allow the size of the disciplinary board to be no fewer than 7 and up to 17. We had set it for 3 lay people and 4 clergy. You have to have a majority of clergy by 1. And it turns out that's just not enough people, because when things come up, you have to assemble several different groupings, and people are on vacation, or they're best friends with the person, or it's their own rector, or, there's a variety of reasons why someone might not be able to serve. So we are expanding our options and saying that we will have no fewer than 7 members, but no more than 13.
Thank you, Gwen.
And it will become immediately effective. We'll hear it first thing during convention, so that we can elect people the next day. We will bring up at 5 clergy and 4 lay, so we will have increased the size somewhat.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments or questions regarding this resolution?
Gwen, I'm just questioning how that will happen the following day. Do you have candidates waiting in the wings to be elected?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good.
I do.
That's all I That's planning.
Not only that, but if you speak out of turn at convention, you will be the first person before the new expanded disciplinary board. That's a joke.
Okay. I don't expect this one to be controversial.
All right. Okay, so the second resolution, 24-02, to affirm General Convention Resolution 2024-B004, commending safe gun storage. This was proposed by the Diocesan Gun Safety Working Group, and I will ask Paul to comment on it.
Yes, thank you. Approving this resolution is confirming the diocese support for the 2024 General Convention position to basically commend and advocate for safe gun laws, safe gun storage laws, and policies both locally and nationwide. The resolution encourages congregations to provide safe gun storage information to their members and community, and to urge our officials to support safe gun storage laws and policies. Safe gun storage prevents children's access to guns and can help prevent suicides, homicides, and unintentional gun deaths and injuries. And common sense gun safety laws, like the safe gun storage, can help save the lives of our children, families, friends, and communities, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions or other discussion on this resolution?
So, Paul, does this basically mirror General Convention precisely? I mean, and you're just saying us too, San Diego, just reflecting the General Convention?
Yes, it does. And it affirms the language. We took the language and just modified where it said General Convention does this. We put in the diocese, does this, and so it does that. And Patrick, do you want to expand on that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, to Stephen's question, we basically plagiarized General Convention from this year and made appropriate changes where needed to make it be diocesan level. And also this one in particular, California state law already has pretty strict gun storage safety laws, which have not been thrown out, unlike other California gun laws. This one is particularly useful for preventing accidental deaths to children finding guns and playing with them, and also is at least a little bit of a deterrent to the person who gets upset and wants to grab their gun and go commit suicide. In order of controversy of the ones that we're proposing, we think this is probably the least controversial.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Patrick and Paul. We'll move on to Resolution 24-03 to affirm General Convention Resolution 2024-D011 regarding the prohibition of assault weapons. This too was proposed by the Gun Safety Working Group, and I will ask Paul to comment on it.
Yeah, thank you. Approving this resolution shows diocesan support for the Episcopal Church's policy or position urging Congress to adopt a new ban on purchase and ownership of assault weapons, except for military and law enforcement agencies. I think as many of you know, assault weapons are the primary weapon used in most of the recent deadliest mass shootings in the US, including the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, Sutherland Springs Church, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School, Uvalde Elementary School. And assault weapons are exceptionally deadly and result in twice as many people being killed and 14 times as many injuries during these mass shootings. A previous ban on assault weapons reduced public mass shootings, gun deaths, and injuries. And assault weapons do not belong on our streets. And I urge you to support this resolution to then help seek changes in this national policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments regarding this resolution?
I have a quick question, just because I have a friend who we have lots of conversations about this. Was there any conversation about adding except for collectors? Because I know a lot of people who have a mass gun collection that they have permits for, they've gone through the proper authorities for, that some of this does apply to. I just wondered, and I'll just ask the question, was there conversation about having that as an addendum, or period, exclamation mark, no?
I'll go ahead and provide a response to that. We didn't have that in-depth conversation on what could be different elements of this particular issue. We chose to mirror what was the actual position taken by the church, the General Convention at the 2024 convention. And
Thank you.
since they didn't include anything, we didn't make modifications to that.
Thank you. It was just a question if it had been talked about.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it was not talked about by our group. But I believe in the various proposals that have come up, it has been more about a ban on sales of future sales. And a point that is made often is nobody is coming to take the guns of people that already have them or existing collectors. Although frankly, most collectors are collecting more different type of guns, but I know some people use collectors as we're going to have assault rifles anyway. And apparently this would have been useful at a Missouri Senate campaign rally earlier this week when the Senate candidate was firing off an AR-15 at his house, and he accidentally shot a reporter. So fortunately, he just grazed him. Wasn't serious, but I mean, these guns are particularly hard to handle because of the repeated, rapid, and massive recoil.
Any other discussion?
Kind of ironic that the Senate candidate, trying to show off how safe they were, managed to shoot a reporter at his campaign rally, but.
All right.
Actually, I'm going to take a moment here. I'm going to stop sharing for a second just so I can see people's faces better. I imagine that this resolution and possibly the next two that we're going to review will engender conversation. And if you've not been to convention before, I'll just take a moment to tell you how it works. If you would like to speak, you approach one of the microphones and you get in line. When you approach the microphone, you always greet the bishop. And then you say who you are and what congregation you come from. You ask your question or you make your comment. And then that's your turn. You do not get to get in line again. So especially for people who are at these hearings and might have something that you want to say, I recommend you have it written down in advance, because suddenly you're at the microphone and you're looking at the bishop and it's like, ugh. So do that, and then we just go through and call on people until the bishop declares that or someone calls the question, or there are guidelines in the rules board that I have to look at, but that's the general way that things happen.
And you don't do back and forth between different people at the microphone.
Correct. You speak to the bishop. You speak to the bishop, and if the bishop, yes, she runs the show. Patrick.
Yeah, all of that's correct. And Stephen's point about crosstalk between commentators is absolutely correct. But just procedurally, there is no discussion on the resolution until it has been seconded and then opened for discussion. And then if somebody proposes an amendment and the amendment is then seconded, then the discussion is directed towards the amendment until the amendment is called. And the convention fairly closely or follows Robert's Rules of Order, but a lot of people aren't really familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, so it could be a little bit odd to you. But the main thing is you direct your comments to the bishop, not to the person who just told you what an idiot you were for this proposal or whatever. And you only speak to what is being considered at that moment, whether that be the original resolution or the amendment to the resolution.
Yes, thank you. All right, let me,
That being said, I think these resolutions will get some response.
oh, I do too.
Which I think is a good thing. Let people have their voice, but it's pretty orderly. So, you know.
Yes, it should be an orderly voice. But yes, I expect that these will engender conversation, possibly amendments. So, okay, going back to sharing my screen. We are now on 2404.
So resolution 2404 to affirm General Convention Resolution 2024 D014, declaring gun violence a national health crisis. Again, proposed by the Diocesan Gun Safety Working Group. And Paul, I'll ask you to comment on this.
Thank you. Approving this resolution shows diocesan support and agreement with the Episcopal Church General Convention's position to urge Congress and other officials to declare gun violence a national health crisis. Now, there were 658 mass shootings, 43,201 people killed, and 36,553 people injured by gun violence in our country in 2023. And more than 120 people die daily from gun violence. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death in children, with 1,708 children killed and 4,539 injured just during 2023. Gun suicides are the largest cause of gun deaths in the US. And 24,090 deaths occurred by gun suicide in 2023. That accounted for 56% of all gun deaths. Declaring gun violence national health crisis will bring added attention on the actual health and social impacts of guns in our society, and I urge your support for this resolution.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments on Resolution 4? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to Resolution 24-05 to require individual congregations to consider declaring their church property as weapons-free zones. Again, proposed by the Gun Safety Working Group. And Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. This resolution implements the intent of the 2012 General Convention resolution that requested every parish and every diocese a diocesan place of work to declare their establishments as gun-free zones. And this move, I believe, was in keeping with our discipleship of Christ and his cause to nonviolence and peace. This resolution requires every congregation and parish to consider declaring their campus and facility as weapon-free zones and to report their results back to the diocese. St. Barnabas and St. Margaret's and many other churches and dioceses across the country, including the Diocese of Hawaii, Texas, have already declared their places of worship as gun-free zones. And one of the measures that they've incorporated into these resolutions is to provide an exception for law enforcement officers acting in their official duties. So it would not exclude law enforcement officers from carrying weapons on church property. The church has historically been a place of safety and sanctuary. And our churches should provide congregants the ability to worship safely in a place without concern that firearms are present and may cause harm. Recent studies have found that active shootings were 62.5% less likely to occur in gun-free establishments than gun-allowing establishments. And we believe that increasing the number of guns in our communities, in our places of worship, work, and recreation is not a safe path to increase security. And I would urge your support for this and implementation of it if adopted.
Thank you, Paul. Questions or comments regarding Resolution 5?
Patrick
Oh.
has his hand up.
Okay, I can't see. Okay, thank you.
Just one clarification because it's come up in the past. This resolution does not require any congregation to vote to ban fireworks. It merely requires them to raise the issue and vote one way or the other. And then the other comment is that the legislature in California tried to do this, and it was declared unconstitutional for the state to do this. But the court case, which declared it unconstitutional for the state to ban weapons from houses of worship, because apparently they were welcome in 1789 in order to combat runaway slaves and Indian tribes, and that literally is the historical reason, said that although the state cannot ban it, the churches themselves can ban people because they are private institutions. And any church that has this would then have a legal basis to ask somebody to remove their weapon from the church, take it back to their car or whatever, that they would not otherwise be able to do without such a resolution. And again, in response to a question that we've received, this does not mean that you are not welcome. It means your gun is not welcome.
I hope someone asks you, because it won't be me. I hope someone asks you, how is Canon Gwen going to enforce this? Because it'll be the diocesan office who has to enforce it. And I am curious about that.
As we noted in the last session that we had, it's somewhat toothless because there's not a specific sanction, but it would be enforced by requesting that individual congregations report on what the result of their vote or their consideration was. But it's somewhat toothless because we're not going to excommunicate you if you fail to do that.
Correct. Okay.
I have a quick question. How does this apply to campuses that are shared with either other churches or schools? Do we then enforce what our campus is this and therefore we enforce it with them? Do we have to work with them to make sure that they're on the same page, or their people can carry and ours can't? How does that work with sharing of I'm thinking of St. Matthew's and we have a school on site.
St. Matthew's is an interesting choice, but remember, this does not mandate you to adopt this policy. I do happen to know that St. Matthew's in National City, your pastor is a member of the working group, so I think he's in favor of this.
Yeah, I imagine it's a good thing.
but I don't wish to speak for him. But in answer to your specific question, where we are sharing facilities with other institutions, I think it depends upon whether it is another institution sharing the Episcopal Church property or the Episcopal Church sharing another church's property. So whoever would be the owner of the property would, I think, be entitled to make the policy for whoever uses the property. So in the instance of St. Matthew's, if St. Matthew's decided to adopt such a policy, and they could craft the policy however they want, we're not mandating how they craft it, But if St. Matthew's decided to adopt a policy, St. Matthew's could insist that anybody using St. Matthew's property abide by that policy.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
quit
Well, it
using,
just
or
goes
quit
into the
using St. Matthew's
contract.
property.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, oh, we have AA groups and NA groups that use different facilities or rentals, and it just goes into the contract. I was just curious how that worked out. Thank you.
Now, if St. Matthew's was renting from the local Presbyterian church, and the local Presbyterian church decided they wanted to allow guns, I suppose St. Matthew's would kind of be stuck with that decision.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Resolution 5?
Okay, I will share
All right.
this again.
The only comment is that we're going to have a much more important vote 4 days before we vote at convention that's going to impact what happens nationally with a lot of these ideas.
Yeah. True enough. True enough.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
So Resolution 24-06 on the approval of Community of Light as a diocesan institution. This is actually proposed by the Community of Light. And Steve, would you like to speak to this?
I was not really prepared to.
Okay, that's okay.
But I will,
Okay.
since Jeff put this in. I'm going to just be kind of brief with it. And when I believe there's going to be quite a video of some sort explaining this, and it will be before the resolution is considered, explaining just at the facilities.
Let me not jot that down for the script.
For some, I thought it was on the first day, and this being the 6th resolution, maybe it's on the 2nd day or something.
I think the video is going to play on day 1 as a general introduction, and resolutions get voted on day 2. So
that's perfect.
And
that's perfect.
I could be wrong, but I don't think the video will play right before the vote.
All right. This resolution is pretty simple. Community of Light, which is already a corporation in the state of California now, and we're working with the Comunidad de Luz to form a AC in Mexico. We also think it's important to be an institution of the diocese and abide by the canons and constitution of the diocese and the Episcopal Church. Just like Episcopal Community Services, Refugee Net, Bishop School, those are all institution. We want to be an institution too. And oh, by the way, there's Wiedehoven is also an institution. And Wiedehoven and VA International, the Anglican Diocese of Western Mexico, were all in a I'll call it a network, in a collaboration to establish a migrant shelter in Tijuana. Tony and Pilar Ralphs have had a orphanage for nearly 50 years in Tijuana, and they have a very large multi-story building that they are making available to Community of Light for about 100 migrant mothers and children. And I think this is a great idea, and I think the videos will tell the story of just how of what can happen here. This is for asylees, refugees, migrants who are trying to get into the United States but are being held in Mexico. They are probably, many of them are from foreign countries, and they may never ever be able to come into the United States legally. this is a place where we can accept them in their, as they come to Mexico, we can help there, and to get food, get the kids into school, navigate through this medical system, provide dental and medical care right there in the migrant center. So that's what this one's all about. I don't think it's controversial.
I don't think so.
It's a good one.
Thank you,
It's
Steve.
also already been approved by the executive council. I don't know if you want to make that point or not.
Yes. Both standing committee and executive council have approved it. This is just an extra step, just to raise the awareness across the whole diocese of this new institution.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions on this resolution?
I'll make a comment. Steve and I applaud you and the work of your fellow ministers in this endeavor. It warms my heart to see our diocese acting out its purpose and its goals to serve those in need, and particularly to serve, and care for the migrants that are just looking for a new way of life or looking for a better life, and helping them in the difficult situation that they're with. God bless you, and and full speed ahead.
Thank you. We hope to open in January.
Wow, wonderful. Good. And we'll note for the record, Lisa's clapping hands as well. Good. All right, I think unless there's anything else to say about Resolution 6, I think that wraps up our review of the resolutions that will be before convention.
And the only other thing that I would commend to you on the resolution page, you will see 3 resolutions that have been referred to diocese from General Convention that we have to consider. We don't have to vote on them. It's just we need to present them. So they are on the webpage. If you're a delegate or a visitor, they're at in Palm Desert, you will have a booklet that has the text in it, but you can read them on the internet too.
When do I assume those are 7, 8, and 9, or
No,
not?
they're not, because they're not resolutions
Right.
as much. But that's where I'm going to put them, because they're resolutions from General Convention. When you make a change to the Constitution of the Episcopal Church, it takes 2 General Conventions to pass it. Oh, where'd my thing go? Here. No, I guess they're not on here.
I don't think they're up yet.
They aren't yet. Okay. When you are making changes to the Constitution of the Episcopal Church or the prayer book, it takes 2 General Conventions to pass it, so that you can't do anything speedy, nothing too rash all in one time. And part of it is then making sure that the rest of the Episcopalians know about it. And so they are sent to dioceses, and we are required to share them. The first is amending the Constitution regarding clergy and local ecumenical partnerships. Marriage rights. The second is marriage rights for inclusion in the Book of Common Prayer. And the third is amending Article 10, which is also about the prayer book. And you can read those. I'm making a note to make sure we get those up.
Now, are they just read, or are they supposed to be, is there a period of discussion if.
And we
anybody
don't
feels so.
we don't even need to read them. They're just referred to us. So we will
They
not be
just need to
reading
be
the text.
distributed.
And so we will not be reading the text, and we will not to be discussing them.
Okay.
Because they have to go through another 3-year cycle before so we're only halfway through.
Well, yeah, then Lisa. Oh, you put your hand down?
Well, after we're done with this discussion, I do have a further question.
Okay.
But
Douglas.
I think the nature of this process is to make all dioceses aware that these did pass on the first hearing this past summer, and to spark conversation to the extent there needs to be any at the diocesan level before the delegates go back in 2027 to vote again. So I think it's really just an awareness move,
Yes.
rather than a debate move. Yeah.
Lisa, your question.
Okay. I'm a delegate, and as such, I am expected to be able to explain to people who are not there what's going on, what we're talking about, and why we're doing things. And I'm going to need some help with some of the resolutions that seem to be simply me too. So, for instance, I think, as I recall, 4, maybe 4, 3, and 2, or those resolutions that simply say, yeah, we're in to what they said at General Convention. Why? What is the point? Why is it important for us to do that? I want to be able to articulate why it's important for us to do that.
I will say something, and then I'll ask one of the members of the group. I would note that it is almost impossible to know what happened at General Convention. You know, it is so many days of so much stuff, and some really important things happen. And I'm not going to speak for this particular group, but I can see the value in when you have those that you think are important and no one at home has heard them, this is your opportunity to bring them to people's attention.
I would agree with that. And as the one that tracked down the resolutions that were passed at General Convention regarding guns, and there were actually 4 of them, not 3 of them, at this year's General Convention. There was one we decided not to bring relating to investments in gun manufacturers, which we just thought would complicate things too much for the investment committee. But as a church, we believe that we have a moral and theological imperative to take a stance against instruments of violence whenever we can. And, 2, 3, and 4 are what you would characterize as Me Too resolutions to the 2024 convention. 5, which is probably going to be the more controversial one about gun safety, weapon-free zones, is actually a Me Too resolution about a resolution that was passed 12 years ago. And in our view, has been slowly, very slowly disseminating itself across the Episcopal Church writ large. And some have adopted it through diocesan type resolutions. Some dioceses have adopted it through a bishop making an announcement and a pronouncement. And it's a little bit surprising when you think of some of the places that have And of the four, it's the one that has the most practical impact to our individual churches. And it's a little surprising when you think that the Diocese of Texas has adopted such a rule diocese-wide, but we haven't. And you know, we're 12 years, and who knows how many lives passed when we think it was time to bring this. We thought about bringing it earlier, but we kind of got talked out of it last year because we really weren't ready to bring it. And this year, there was a lot of debate about whether to bring a resolution that said that just declared every place a gun-free zone, which we thought would be more controversial than just saying, look, we're 12 years past the resolution from the General Convention that said, basically do this. And it's time for people to be aware that the General Convention of the Church wanted people to do this and asked them to at least bring it to the forefront of their minds and make a decision. And I apologize. As you may know, Paul, myself, and I think Debbie, because she's on our committee, as well as a few others, are fairly passionate about this cause.
I'll add one other comment or two. You know, one of the other things that, you know, both of those comments are, you know, are why I enthusiastically supported this, and you know, am glad to see it moving forward. But one of the other things that is actually in many of the Me Too resolutions, though, is that it's calling out for congregations to act not nationally, but then also locally. And if you don't know about the resolution locally, I mean, it helps one empower our congregations to go ahead and act locally. And then also, I think, gives them even more support, more emphasis on the actions that they are taking. If you can say, yes, and this is supported by our entire diocese, by the church and the diocese here. So it's not only, oh, this was done you know, somewhere on the East Coast, you know, far removed from here, but by having our diocese affirm these resolutions and say, yes, we do agree that these are important issues and want to move forward on solutions.
If you're speaking to people who are wondering why Me Too, and I understand why you use that term, I would refer to them more as implementing resolutions, where we are implementing what the national church has done at a local level. You know, I mean, theoretically, I suppose, the national church has already spoken all of these things, but particularly resolution number 5 indicates that the national church can speak on something, and we can be 12 years down the road and no one knows that the national church has spoken on it, and except in a few dioceses and a few parishes, nothing has been done to implement the 2012 resolution. And so we're bringing something that we hope will implement it.
Okay, so it's bringing something to the fore that gives us support for implementing something at home.
Correct. It's a good way of putting it.
Okay. Thank you. That was very, this discussion is
It was
very.
a good question. I needed to think about that, and we need to be ready to address that question. So it's a good question.
Thank you, friends. I look forward to seeing you at convention. Do you all know where and when it is? You laugh.
You do.
We've had whole delegations show up at the wrong place.
No.
Yeah. It's not at St. Paul's, it's at St. Margaret's. I have to keep
It's at
telling myself
St.
that.
Margaret's in Palm Desert. We will begin Friday morning with optional, there are some optional activities that you might want to enjoy. Convention starts at 2. We will watch a movie, if you wish. There will be some a discussion, a panel discussion of mission real estate and more information about the work that Robert Vivar is doing. And on Saturday, we will have a convention Eucharist. We'll have banners this year. If you want to bring your congregational banner, you need to bring your stand and you need to bring someone to carry that banner because it's your job. You know, it's the congregation's job. And then we will elect people for offices and vote on these resolutions. So should be great.
So I add too that we're
Oh, yes.
we're having ministry tables and vendor tables as well. And I would invite all of you to stop by our ministry table. The Gun Safety Working Group will have a table where we will be implementing many of these resolutions even before the diocese approves them, where we will be providing information on gun safety, and we have gun safety locks that we pass out for free. We will also be passing out orange ribbons to wear, try to convince the delegates and participants to please join us in wearing an orange ribbon that shows that we remember all the different victims. And we are also handing out a orange stole that can be used by each parish during the annual Gun Safety Awareness Week or Wear Orange Sunday. And we're going to be having a vigil. So I've talked enough. So Patrick, do you want to say anything more about that?
I can tell you that after dinner, the bishop will, from the stage there where everyone's assembled, she will invite everyone to join the vigil, and then she will open it with prayer, and then the vigil people will go to the front of the sanctuary. It'll be candlelit. You're bringing the candles, correct?
LED candles.
We are bringing candles. I thought it was going to be on the steps in front of the church.
It is.
Outdoors.
Did I say that wrong?
Okay. You said in the sanctuary, to the front of the
I did,
sanctuary.
yeah.
But yeah, and it should not take long. It will specifically memorialize people within the geographical region of our diocese who've lost their lives to gun violence in 2024. It's not, I mean, if we went back much further, we'd be there all night, but it's still not a short list, which is, I guess, kind of the point.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I will see you at convention.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you all
everybody.
for your good questions and interest.